One of the major challenges we have in making digital music is to do with MIDI drum patterns. They can often sound too clinical and precise, and if they are short clips, the lack of variation can be an issue. A live drummer will often be putting in little fills and subtle variations which help to retain the listener's interest in what is essentially a repeated pattern. Of course, we can program in variations ourselves, but this is very time consuming and often sounds a bit stilted. In this session, I want to concentrate on making interesting drum patterns. Patterns which are repetitive, but are still capable of retaining the listener's attention. One way of doing this is to work with a time signature of 12/8. Working with a 12/8 pattern, or 12 beats per bar, provides lots of flexibility because 12 can be divided in several different ways. So we can subdivide into 2, 3, 4 or 6 beat patterns. Here are some possibilities. We can split a bar into different beat configurations. Here we have a group of 2 beat notes followed by a couple of 3 beat notes. This is what they sound like. We can superimpose 2 different meters of beat systems at the same time. Here we have 4 beats per bar on the kick drum against 6 beats on the hi-hat. And we can divide the bar asymmetrically. For example, this pattern divides the bar into a 5 and a 7 beat pattern. African drummers make use of these approaches, which is one of the reasons why repetitive African drum patterns do not sound boring or too predictable. Notating African rhythm patterns is not always easy, but using a 12/8 time signature works fine for more straightforward patterns. Minimalist musicians such as Steve Reich also exploit this method of using beats and will often transfer these rhythm patterns to Western orchestral instruments. Let's now look at how I use 12/8 rhythm patterns like these in a piece from my CD, Days of Sun and Days of Rain, in a track titled An Endangered Species. For this tutorial, I've raised the volume levels of the drum parts a little. I'll play from bar 6. Notice how combining 2 patterns makes an effective drum backing for guitars, which come in a bit later. So here's the first drum part. Here's the second drum part. And here they are combined. At bar 39, we bring in another drum part, based on patterns of 2s and 3s. The first half of the bar is a 2-beat pattern. The second half, beginning from the snare sound, is a 3-beat pattern. Let's hear it on its own to start with. Notice how I offset this pattern by bringing it in on the 4th beat, giving it a more syncopated feel. Now here it is with the other parts. Notice also how a bass part fades in to reinforce one of the drum patterns. I'm now going to play from bar 102. Up to now, the guitar has been playing jagged, fragmented rhythms, but bar 104, notice how it settles down into a regular swing rhythm based on threes. Finally, at bar 120, the first drum part moves over from a steady 4 beats per bar to a rhythm based on threes and twos. Let's solo this so we can hear the changeover. It's a steady beat, and now the threes and twos. Now with the other instruments. And so on. So here's a few pointers to sum up. First one, put drums on separate tracks. It makes it easier for adjusting levels and for panning, for adding effects, EQ, etc. You can then try out different combinations of patterns. Also try different combinations of percussion instruments. A pattern that sounds uninspiring on tom-toms might sound great on cymbals. Try different tempos. What might sound busy and cluttered at 180 BPM might sound great at, say, 100 BPM, and vice versa. Try offsetting some patterns for an even more funky feel. Have some of your instruments, typically a bass part, reinforcing one of the drum rhythm parts. Other instruments can then settle down into a regular groove based on 2, 3, 4 or 6s, and they can move between these patterns. 12/8 time signature gives such a lot of flexibility. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. You can hear the full track by following the links given below the video, and constructive comments are always welcome.